What's up, everybody? We're here without Mike. He's having some technical difficulties, so we are just getting started here. Obviously, not my thing. So I'm putting on this Gardner Minshew hat, and we are trying to make this work the best we can. Usually, you would have a nice little pretty intro, but unfortunately, Mike's moving and dealing with some technical issues here. So welcome in to the RPG podcast. I'm Evan. I'm going to be your host for right now. And Mike is joining us. There he is.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, sorry. Coming live from Diaper Tower, so you know how it goes.
Oh, you're good.
Diaper Tower. Understand, man. Understand.
Yep.
All right. But yeah, so Mike's joining us now. So appreciate you coming on here. And then we got a special guest today, Bernie from Astronauts. Is that right?
Yeah, Fantasy Football Astronauts. What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Appreciate having you here, man. Anything that you want to plug before we get going on the show?
No, you can follow me on Twitter at C Sports Bros. So you can find some of my work in the Fantasy Football Astronauts Rookie Guide, and we're working on the Film Lab right now as we speak. So just keep your eyes out for that. Okay,
awesome. Well, hey, we're really happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And Mike and I kind of ran a little scramble drill here, so appreciate the flexibility.
No worries.
Yeah, so Mike usually does the cuts. So yeah, I guess it's time for the news and notes, wherever that is.
And now it's time for news and notes.
All right, cool. Still quarterbacking. Appreciate it.
Good for you.
News and notes. We had some Rashee Rice news today, allegedly hitting a photographer. How's that?
Wide receivers try to be normal for one day.
Yeah, that's tough. After his stock was already kind of falling this offseason due to some other stuff, but
over under 8.5 games played this year.
I still think over. I don't like this is the NFL. I don't think that what are they going to suspend him for? What would that be? 7 games? 8, 9 games? 9 games.
Yeah.
9, yeah.
No way. I mean, when's the last time someone got suspended for that much?
Deshaun Watson, which it proves you got to do a lot.
Okay.
You have to do a lot. So, yeah, no, he'll probably get on the Alvin Kamara train. He'll be suspended for 6 games. We'll all undervalue him in fantasy, and then he ends up being fine in the second half of the year.
Yeah, I think in best ball and stuff like that, I would buy the dip. Dynasty too, probably, but I don't know. I already had some kind of concerns with him in terms of being consistent on the field, and then you see this sort of thing off the field, then it definitely doesn't make you feel better. But if he's going to be available for cheap, I mean, he's still in the Chiefs offense and probably projected as their wide receiver too. So
yeah, so mentioning cheap right there, what if you're targeting him as a buy, what would you be looking to try and buy him for? And then let's flip it the reverse here. What would you be looking to sell him for if you have him right now and you're kind of a little panicked?
I feel like a 3rd round pick in this upcoming, if you haven't had your rookie draft yet. I like the depth in this year's receiver class, but obviously there's a lot of risk there with rookies too, that they might not do anything. So if some of my targets in the 3rd round are maybe off the board and I'm up, I might try flipping that pick for Rashee Rice. And I think that's probably about what I would be expecting if I was selling him as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd probably look to buy anything after the 204. So when I look at my rookie drafts, I have a pretty big tier break right after like Ladd McConkey, Trey Benson, even Keon Coleman in his beautiful yellow jacket. Like, start looking at those guys, and after them, it turns almost from like early producers and guys that I'm really excited about to guys I'm a little worried about, or I can't really see a year one. They're not going to gain that much value. So mid-second to late second after that pick, I'm like, hey, let me get Rashee Rice. Like, I would almost send 205, 206, and a 3rd to try and make it happen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting because I think I'm about to be the highest here.
Oh, yeah?
I was going to say, yeah, because I was looking at my rankings and 14 is my cutoff. So any pick after the 14th overall, look, it's pretty simple for me. He was going for a 25 first before the offseason hit. So as soon as he gets all of this behind him, if he produces like he was this past season, not seeing any kind of increase in production, any kind of increased role in the offense, I think you're still going to be able to sell him for that future first, back end first and 25, future 26 when it comes around. So yeah, I'm maybe a little more bullish. All right, so moving on to a couple other topics that we have here. Odell Beckham to the Dolphins, DJ Chark to the Chargers, Ezekiel Elliott back to the Cowboys, and then we got a Travis Kelce extension, 2 more years, and A.J. Brown extension, 3 more years. So pick one of those topics. Which one do you want to talk about, Bernie?
I'll take Odell to the Dolphins. I think that's great news for my boy Malik Washington. So I'm here to spread Malik Washington propaganda any chance I get. No, I mean, I don't know. Odell doesn't probably have much left, but I do think the Dolphins have done well to just kind of fill out their depth a lot better than they had it. Like last year, they had River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios as the wide receiver 3. Those guys don't really slot in too well to replace Tyreek and Waddle. They don't provide a lot of yak, and they can't really run the quick motions and the crazy routes that McDaniel likes to dial up. So Odell can do some of that. He's obviously got really great hands and can just be a reliable target for Tua. But seriously, I also do think Malik Washington and even Taj Washington, is that how you guys pronounce that? I think both of them could supplant Craycraft and Berrios. So I kind of like the Dolphins' depth this year. Jalen Wright too.
Will not stand for Braxton Berrios slander. This is a Braxton Berrios podcast. But no, yeah, I love Malik, and I think the landing spot makes a lot of sense. And Odell, worst case scenario, veteran presence number 3. Best case scenario, veteran presence number 3. Like, he's not viable.
Best case scenario, personal wide receiver coach for Malik Washington.
What's that?
Best case scenario, personal wide receiver coach for Malik Washington.
Exactly. You can just teach him how to use those crazy one-handed gadgets. But, I mean, Odell doesn't really have anything that I'm worried about Washington long-term, and it's better for Tua than anything else. And the Miami Dolphins, if you have Odell in Dynasty, I don't know why you still would. This is another opportunity, like name recognition, good offense. If you can't find the fish in the league, it's probably you. Like, find that sucker, flip him for a third. Like, get really, like, anything that you can get for Odell at this point is a big win. I do want to talk about Zeke to the Cowboys. Evan, what would you buy him in Dynasty right now? Because I'd buy him for a third.
Yeah, I mean, give me a 25 third, and I will gladly buy him for that. So,
yeah, you slot him in as your RB4 on a roster. You get an injury, you get a bye week, whatever. Like this, he was the dump off king in New England. He was actually their leading receiver last year, which is hilarious. So, and that's by receptions total. Another opportunity for him to have a little bit of life in fantasy, and we talk about on the show all the time, like running backs with a pulse. Zeke's a running back with a pulse on a good team, so hilarious. They're actually paying him more in dead cap from his old contract than they are on his new contract. So the Ezekiel Elliott cap hit is pretty substantial, but it's all of his old contract. It's none of his new one.
Okay, awesome. And can I highlight the Travis Kelce contract here real quick? Getting to your extension. I mean, look, people were buying him in tight end premium leagues for 201, for 112. Yep. I mean, how silly do you feel at this point that you just sold Travis Kelce for what's likely 2 more seasons for the 201?
For Lad McConkey, baby. It's a good trade.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're the Dads for Lad podcast over here. We're just crazy for Lad. And, even that, it's hard to stomach that you gave up elite tight end production. Even if they start managing him a little bit more, they start limiting his snaps a little bit. But even with all of that, he should still be a top 6 option.
100%. Do you want to hit on the DJ Chark thing real quick? Look, Chargers depth chart right now, disgusting, despicable, terrible. DJ Chark you can get for basically free and maybe like worst case scenario, use him as a bye week flex option. Like your team is decimated and you just need to pray for a touchdown. Like his skill set is a deep threat that thrives off of play action. He's going to Justin Herbert, one of the best deep ball throwers, plus a play action system. It makes sense. He's not going to be weekly sustainable. He's probably going to be one of those guys that finishes as the wide receiver 50 because he accidentally catches a few long touchdowns. Maybe you play him for the long touchdowns and it works out.
Yeah, probably better in best ball, but I do think that the depth chart there is so bad that it's hard to know what would happen. I mean, I kind of think Ladd and Josh Palmer will probably be the two receivers and two receiver sets, and then they'll mix in Quentin Johnson, I guess, as the third receiver. But after that, who knows? And with injuries and whatnot, I don't think that's a bad dart to throw.
Yeah, definitely another dart. But with that being said, can we get into...
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Appreciate that, Mike. I was just getting there. All right,
Hell
so
yeah.
meat and potatoes for tonight. We are talking about the NFL veterans, which escaped the NFL draft, and we think actually got a bump from the players that their team drafted. All right, so
We can also hit a couple that were nuked by the NFL draft, and now we're sad about them.
okay, sure. We will go ahead and do that as well. All right, so we're going to start off at the quarterback position. Mike, we'll go to you first here. Quarterback, positive, negative? Who are you going with?
I would love to talk about Daniel Jones real quick. So, full transparency, I didn't get a chance to look at the show notes, so I'm sorry if I stole this from one of you guys. But Daniel Jones, one, they didn't take a first-round quarterback, so he is safe for at least this year. Two, you add Malik Neighbors, who a lot of people had as wide receiver 1. Worst case scenario, you had him wide receiver 3 or 4. Like, we're talking about an elite wide receiver talent. Yes, Daniel Jones has never thrown for more than 800 yards to one player, but he's never played with a player like Malik Neighbors. So I think we're looking at he has survived for at least 1 year. The 2025 class is bad. The NFC East is weird. There's a chance that Daniel Jones is a quarterback in 2025 as well. And you can go buy him in Dynasty relatively cheap. You can get him in redraft for basically free. And he brings elite rushing, not elite. He brings positive rushing volume that we look for in fantasy football. So from all of the tiers that I'm looking for a guy that is relatively free, like go grab you some Daniel Jones, enjoy the profits, and enjoy the weird security that Daniel Jones does not deserve.
That's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because in my notes that I didn't include, I was thinking about saying Drew Lock for similar reasons.
Hell yeah.
I do think, like, if you are going to take the flyer on Daniel Jones, Drew Lock is probably even cheaper, so take it on him too. And everything you just mentioned is the same for him, except for the rushing, which I guess is a big deal. But it just kind of seems to me like the way that they were talking this offseason and rumors about when they acquired Drew Lock to have a starting opportunity, it just seems like the Giants are kind of fed up with Daniel Jones. And I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Lock, was the starter by mid-season. Or really, I mean, nothing with that quarterback room would shock me. But I do agree, like, Malik Neighbors is the best receiver that's been on that team since young Odell. So I think there's definitely a higher floor there than there has been in the past.
Yep. I would love for Drew Lock to play because I think Drew Lock's a hilarious player to watch. The just unbridled swagger mixed with a very medium quarterback. It's hilarious, and I love it.
Yeah.
But
as a Seahawks fan, yeah.
Yeah. The Broncos days were electric, but I don't really see a world where, like, he was a throw-in in a trade. Go ahead and add him, but I don't think that he poses a real threat to Daniel Jones long term. But Daniel Jones, again, hasn't earned any security. So, like, for free 99, go grab you some Drew Lock.
Yeah,
So is Dable on the hot seat this coming season? Do you think
Dude, he has to be.
Yeah, if he only wins 4-5 games, he's gone. Bold prediction.
Yeah.
Early, you think?
Yeah, he's going to go back to being an OC, and he'll unlock some offense somewhere, and he'll get another chance and another chance and another chance. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, I guess so. People love to fire their coaches. I feel like, I wouldn't necessarily want to see him go, but he also really hasn't done anything to deserve to stay. So he's kind of the Daniel Jones of coaches.
He was brought in to fix the culture, and then all he did was give Daniel Jones more chances and then start Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
Oof.
Tommy Cutlets, baby. All right, Bernie. Hey, we're gonna move on over to you for your quarterback for this week. Who are you looking at?
I'll say Anthony Richardson. Replacing Alec Pierce, who's probably, as an small Alex Pierce fan coming out, it hurts to say this, but he's probably one of the worst starting wide receivers in the whole league in terms of he was on the field a lot, running a lot of vertical routes. And they replaced that with Adonai Mitchell, and he comes in and is a much better player, in my opinion, than Alec Pierce from day one. Richardson gets the whole offseason as the starting quarterback. I just like the Colts infrastructure. I like the coaching. And now I think that Pittman, Mitchell, and Downs is one of the better 3 receiving sets in the whole league. I think that he could go nuclear this year. Obviously, his rushing floor is going to be super high, but I could just see him and Mitchell connecting on a ton of deep balls throughout the year. So I really like that addition. I think it's a perfect replacement and big upgrade over Alec Pierce. So he meshes well with the rest of the skill players.
I love the Anthony Richardson call out because I loved Anthony Richardson pre-draft. Evan, I have no feedback for this one. I think it's a great call out and that we should be really excited about it. Do you have any concerns about it? All right, Evan's internet crashed. So, Bernie, while it's just you and me on what is known as the Scramble Pod.
One potential concern with Richardson, real quick, could just be people are worried about the passing volume, I think, in that offense, and just him kind of, vulturing some goal line opportunities, or just, Jonathan Taylor's going to get carries. So there's a bit of a concern there, but I think for Richardson himself, it's good for him.
Yep. But let's answer this question from Brad. Thanks for Bradford. Sorry if you don't go by Brad. I've never met a Bradford that doesn't. But in a 1 quarterback league, would you buy Zay Flowers for 110 and 210? I've already talked to him. I think this is a smash accept, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think I would, depending on the roster, obviously. I don't play a lot of 1 quarterback leagues, so I don't know how that affects the value of other players, but I think I would hammer that probably even in Superflex, honestly. He's looking like the Ravens wide receiver 1 and is tied to Lamar. I feel like he also kind of benefited from this draft. The Ravens didn't really add any receivers, so he's probably in for a huge year. They can scheme him targets. Yeah.
The other reason I want to hit this question, I think it's a perfect segue to another one of my winners. It's actually Zay Flowers. So the only receiver that they added worth noting is Des Walker, who we don't like him as a player, but from a speed perspective, he does force safeties to back off. He does force coverage to roll to his side, whether or not he's actually worth it, whatever, because he can still go off for a deep ball every once in a while, which forces teams to adjust. Now, Zay Flowers, a PPR merchant, an expert underneath ball grabber, phrasing. He's really, really good at what he does. And this is just going to unlock the offense a little bit more. And if you're not adding another target hog, it's just Zay and no one else. He's due for another wide receiver 20 to 30 finish with just ungodly PPR points. Evan, welcome back.
Sorry about that. Internet decided it wanted to crap out. But yes, on this topic, I'm thinking 1 quarterback. So now I try and equate, since we play mostly in Superflex leagues. So now I'm trying to say, okay, quarterbacks that are going to go in round 1 before that 110 pick anyway, that's probably Bo Nix territory. So I'm looking at Bo Nix. I'm looking at JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. That's 5. So now I start thinking super flex mindset. Okay, so that 110 goes to 111, 112, 201, 202, 203. Yeah. And that's right about my cutoff at the very edge of where I said the picks that I even want are. So yeah, I would 100% be paying 110 and 210 for Zay Flowers. Later in the show, he may or may not be talked about in the wide receiver group.
Nice. Well, Evan, who's your quarterback then?
Yeah, so the quarterback that I'm going to end up going with here is Bryce Young. Crazy enough, everybody hates on Bryce, But the Panthers, what have they done this offseason? They've added interior offensive line help to be able to keep the pressure out of Bryce's face or right up the middle, which was huge. You go back and you talk to the coordinators for Alabama. The coordinators for Alabama have already come out and said Bryce needs to be able to see. He needs to be able to release the ball. He can't have pressure right up in his face. Gee, okay, probably should address that. So check. They did that this offseason. Then they added Leggett. They added a wide receiver, which people may not like him. People may have issues with him, but he's still a first-round wide receiver. And you have another year with Thielen. Okay, old man Thielen, probably going to be operating out of the slot for the most part with Leggett outside. And on top of it, you add Jonathan Brooks to an offense that you're going to have to take some pressure off. So what most people had as their RB1 in the class got probably the best landing spot of any RB in this class. So now you add that, which won't be an immediate hit. You're not going to see it right away. Probably going to be a second half of the season type of play. And you added Deontay Johnson on top of all of it. So the hate that's been on Bryce this offseason, I mean, I think I saw on KTC got all the way down to like QB 26, I think at one point that I saw him there. I mean, he was sliding in drafts, and you have to think this is the year. If anything, he's going to get one shot. We're going to know generically what he is for sure at the end of this season because the Panthers did everything that they could to be able to put players around him to be able to help him out. Bernie, any thoughts on that? I saw you nodding your head a lot.
I agree. Yeah, Bryce was on my list too. I think one of the other bigger things, which is not necessarily draft related, but it was this offseason, is just the coaching change too. Like, I think Canales comes in with a way better plan of what they want to do. I know I kind of agree with Mike on the Leggett thing, like maybe a bit of a reach, especially in terms of I would have just wanted maybe a higher floor player. But they also have Deontay Johnson, who I keep forgetting about, that went over there. So I think the floor of their receiving room has risen a lot. And if Canales has a plan for Leggett, like I do think he's super dynamic with the ball in his hands. Like he can run those crossers at the very least, crossers, sweeps, deep posts, stuff like that. And I was not a huge Bryce Young fan coming out, but I think that we just have to remember how bad that situation was last year and kind of give him the Trevor Lawrence excuse almost of like, there's no one that would have been good on the Panthers last year.
Yeah, and they added everybody's going into the draft favorite tight end too, in JT Sanders, who ended up falling.
Going into February, maybe going into the combine.
Okay, there you go.
They've done everything they can to build around Bryce. I do worry because they finally built a structure. Like, this is clearly a make or break year for Bryce, which if it goes well, that's awesome. Now you have a quarterback 2 on your dynasty team, so you're really excited about. In redraft, I don't know. Like, I don't see the upside for Bryce. Like, he's a magician in the pocket. He's really exciting there. Everyone is running around my house right now. That's great. But when we talk about what Bryce can do, from a fantasy perspective, he needs more weapons around him to be a CJ Stroud type player, to be a Joe Burrow type player. Like, he needs a higher floor in the receiver room, which they did add with DJ. They did get Leggett there. Is it Leggett or Leggett? Do we know that for sure? We just know how excited he is to be a Panther.
I thought it was Leggett, but
I've heard Leggett, yeah.
I'm going to mess that up all season. Can't wait. But no, it's a great room, and it's going to be better than last year. But if it goes poorly, Bryce is out of there quickly, which is a concern.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point for Dynasty.
Cool. Evan, you want to do wide receivers now?
Yeah, so we can move on to the wide receivers over here and go into the wide receiver that I thought got a big boost from the draft in Zay Flowers.
There we go.
You look at that offense and you start thinking about it and you go, wow, there were a lot of mocks that had the Ravens going round 1, round 2, one of those 2 wide receivers, and they were able to completely disregard the wide receiver position. And instead, they signed Bateman to an extension. Oh, yes. What a dynamic move right there for the Ravens. Love it. Zay Flowers, look, the offense runs through Mark Andrews. It runs through Lamar Jackson, making things happen. It runs through what's now going to be Derrick Henry, so whoever the running back is. So, sure, there is capped upside there. But when you're looking at Zay Flowers, I mean, you're talking about a wide receiver that seems to be that middling dynasty. When you look at dynasty rankings, he seems to be that middling to low end wide receiver 2 in most redrafts that you're looking at trying to get. You're having to spend up a little bit because of the age, obviously, with dynasty being an age-ism type of game right now. That plays into it significantly. But absolutely love it. Lamar is still a potential MVP candidate. You still look at that offense. Yeah, they lost a lot on the offensive line, so they do have a lot to be able to rebuild there. But the legs of Lamar should be able to keep plays alive. So I absolutely love Zay keeping, if not increasing, his value.
We both agree. We love Zay Flowers. Bernie,
Yeah.
who's your wide receiver?
I'm gonna go with Drake London. I thought that they could. Well, first of all, in the offseason, they added Rondale Moore and Darnell Mooney, so I'm not worried about any additional target competition. He's already kind of got some target competition with Bijan and Kyle Pitts, but I still think he's the clear number one pass game option on that team. And I also thought that when I was doing mocks and stuff and looking at how the draft might fall, I thought that the Falcons could be a sneaky receiver landing spot at 8, especially if Neighbors was there, just because of how he complements everything. But them passing on Odunze or even Brian Thomas and going with Penix, I think just keeps Drake London's floor so high. If you look at what happened with the Jets last year, Aaron Rodgers goes down with the ACL on the 4th play, and then all of your Garrett Wilson stocks are just tanked. This, at least, if that happens, or if Kirk doesn't come back or whatever, like, I think Penix is a great fit for that system, and I think he can at least, give Drake chances to make plays on the ball, as he showed at Washington. So while the Falcons making that pick, I don't think was necessarily the best move for like their team building in terms of fantasy. All my Falcons players, if I have London or Pitts or Bijan, I'm stoked with that pick, because now instead of whoever it would have been, whoever they traded Desmond Ritter for to back up Kirk, now it's Michael Penix, and I can at least be excited about the floor still remaining there, and potentially even a higher ceiling.
Not a big Taylor Heineke guy? Come on, let's go.
Is that who it is? Yeah. No, I guess I'm not a big Taylor Heineke guy.
Savage. No, I love the idea. It definitely raises the floor of quarterback play. Like, worst case scenario, it's somebody that loves to throw contested balls. And who's he throwing contested balls to? Drake London, 6'5", elite wingspan, great in contested catch scenarios, or Kyle Pitts, 6'5", elite wingspan, great in contested catch scenarios. So it's good to see. And Penix throws a great contested ball. Like, the reason that Odunze and McMillan and Jalen Polk all had great contested catch numbers, when he is throwing it to covered, like air quotes, covered receivers, he's throwing it in a place that only the receiver can get it. And he does a really great job with that. So love the call out of Drake London and not taking a receiver. If they had Odunze there, it would be heartbreaking and trying to figure out who's getting the targets, who's owning what. Now it's Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Everyone else can eat the dust.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that they most likely will have a top 10 offensive line again. I was just trying to remind myself, I think they brought back everybody on that offensive line, if I'm not mistaken here, and it was a top 5 unit last year. So that is huge for the offense. I was really hoping, though, that they would get somebody that could make turnovers on the defense, or at the very least cause turnovers on the defense to get them in a little bit better field position. Because I definitely feel like that was something that the Falcons were lacking last year, which obviously when you have a defense that can create turnover-worthy plays for the other offense, then that puts your offense in better positions, puts more pressure on the defense, gets their offense back on the field against a tired defense, should theoretically score more fantasy points based off of that. But yeah, I understand, and I agree. I think London is a plus.
Yep.
Shootouts are good for fantasy too.
Yep.
I was going to say, instead the Rams got both of those guys in Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, just double dipping on Florida State defenders. Love it.
Hey, that Florida State defense was pretty elite, but you know. All right, Mike, let's hear what you got at wide receiver.
Yeah. So this is going to be a little like more obscure one, but like I actually think the Christian Kirk situation got better this year. So Ridley left. Yes, they take a first-round wide receiver in Brian Thomas, but they also have Gabe Davis. Like, these are players that are field stretchers, and if anything, you're taking a more talented, more freaky athlete, putting him on the outside and making defenders account for it. It's similar to the Zay Flowers conversation earlier. Like, Kirk is a slot guy. He's had over 70% of slot snaps the entire time he's been in Jacksonville. Now he's going to continue to own that role, eat in that role, and maybe even get better targets out of it because there's more talent on the outside the defense has to account for. So it's not that we're worried about Kirk in what he's going to be. It's that the role is defined and the player that they took better complements his skill set than anything else.
I think that's a fair point about the compliment. I didn't really think of Christian Kirk when we were thinking about this exercise. It might be because I'm just a big Brian Thomas fan, but I do think that Brian Thomas definitely projects more as an outside only receiver than Calvin Ridley did. I just don't think the Jaguars even they didn't seem to move their guys around even that much. I think that's kind of why they wanted to go get Gabe Davis, just to hold down that X spot. They obviously were planning on bringing back Calvin Ridley the whole offseason. So I do think it's definitely a safer play than Brian Thomas. I would just be worried about the floor of Christian Kirk. If Brian Thomas is good and Trevor locks onto him as the guy, I feel like Trevor's the kind of guy that will just feed a true number one. And I think that Brian Thomas could be that. So I'd be a little nervous about that. But I mean, they love Christian Kirk there, and he was off to a great start last year before he got hurt too. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I would have been more worried if they took somebody like a Ladd McConkey, like Roman Wilson, someone like that can maybe eat into his slot snaps. But really, Kirk's going to be on the field. He's going to be in that role. And Brian Thomas Jr., freak athlete, amazing, exciting. All he runs is, curls and goes. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love to curl and go too. That's what I do at the gym. But we just got to see a little bit more out of him from a skill tree perspective. And he's not there yet. He can grow into that. But for Christian Kirk's role in 2024 and moving forward, I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, so I actually have that division. I was just looking at the divisions while I was eating lunch probably a couple of days ago. And I was just thinking, what division as a whole is going to score the most amount of points when you combine the scores for all of the teams this year? And I ended up coming to the AFC South. That division, I think, is going to have the most points scored between the four teams when you look up at the end of the year. So I think that division is going to be great. It's going to be shootouts. It's going to be football that should be fun to watch. Even being here in Nashville, I still think the Titans are going to finish last in that division, which is rough for the fan base here for sure to be able to swallow. But yeah, everything in that division is looking up and up. So I think if they get in a couple of shootouts, all of a sudden Trevor's having to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game could bode really well for all the wide receivers that are there.
Yep. 100% agree. I have another one if you guys want to get into it. George Pickens.
Yeah, let's go two each.
George Pickens, nice.
Who did they add? They added Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson isn't stealing snaps from George Pickens. He's not stealing targets from George Pickens. George Pickens is the alpha in the offense. He's going to own his role. And now he has, say what you will about Russ and Justin Fields at this stage of their careers, both are head and shoulders above what Kenny Pickett was last year. So Pittsburgh, the offense is going to be gross. There's going to be weeks where George Pickens gives you 6 targets for 2 catches and 30 yards, and that's going to happen. But there's also going to be weeks where he has 180 to 200 yards, and it's a ridiculous outing. So I think there's a tier break in the fantasy community where everybody's really excited about Drake London because of the quarterback upgrade, because of all these things. Because Pittsburgh didn't add a sexy quarterback, they added the least sexy ones possible. Maybe this is the homer in me, but I think George Pickens is due for a big year, and I'm excited for him in redraft in all formats.
I think that's a good point. I was definitely picturing Pittsburgh as a receiver landing spot, and then, like you said, Roman Wilson, to me, he's more of a Calvin Austin type competitive. He's going to be competing with Calvin Austin as maybe the second receiver in outside sets. We're going to be running the motion stuff, but Pickens is going to be on the field pretty much every snap as long as he's healthy and not getting rested. So I think that makes a ton of sense. It's just kind of like what you said, he's still just going to be so inconsistent, but I mean, those big weeks are still worth it. So that's a good one. He definitely could have had a worse outcome in the draft if they had went receiver in the first round instead of offensive lineman back to back.
Yeah, I think everybody's everybody's trepidation with it is the fact that Arthur Smith is there. That is the biggest question mark. They do have Najee on the expiring contract. So I think that most likely means they're going to end up running him into the ground. They still have Warren there as well. They upgraded the offensive line, getting Fatanu, and then also getting Frazier, which I loved both of those picks. Now you have a center and you have 2 tackles because you took Broderick Jones last year as well. So I think that's a building block offensive line that's going to need a little bit of time to come into their own, but could definitely help to protect whoever the quarterback is. And a strong run game, what does that do if Russell Wilson's the quarterback? Strong run game is play action ball, baby. And what does Russ love to do? Play action ball, chuck it downfield, look for that big play.
And if it's not Russ,
too.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say, all Justin Fields likes to do, it's play action, read one receiver. If he's not open, he's taking off.
So you're a Steelers fan, Mike?
I am. I don't know if it's clear with my pile of boxes in the corner, but normally I have a little bit of Steelers gear up.
So you're very ready to be hurt again this year.
Oh, I'm so ready to be hurt. It's gonna be great.
Nice. I think that the roster is awesome and like they're complimentary. Like I think it makes a lot of sense. I just feel like Arthur Smith is like maybe the worst type of offensive coordinator to go there. Like if he's going to be running a lot of those crossing routes, the play action, he's going to want his quarterbacks to hit their spot and get it out on time. Like I just don't see that meshing with them well. But I mean, he could make an adjustment. I still think he's a good coordinator in general. I just have my questions about the quarterback specific play style with his offense, but I really like that roster and love what they did in the draft too.
Can any coordinator be worse than Matt Canada though? So
No.
Nope.
yeah, exactly.
Literally no.
Anything was an upgrade. You could have put
It's
a
like
rock.
same with Kenny Pickett. Yeah, it's like they went and got the 20th and 25th best quarterbacks in the league, but it's still an upgrade over the 32end best. So what do you want?
It is an upward trajectory. Yep.
Exactly.
Evan, what else you got?
All right, so sticking with wide receiver, look, I don't know how much higher his value could have gone, but I'm going to go with the fact that he maintained elite value in CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys were talked about drafting a wide receiver, and it was within the realm of possibilities because of the fact that CeeDee's on the last year of his contract. Yes, okay, you can make the argument he's likely going to get franchised. Okay, it just kind of is what it is. That's what happens to star wide receivers. If they can't get a contract worked out with the team, they get franchised for 2 years, and then they figure something out, whether he gets traded or moved on from or re-signed long-term, whatever. But CeeDee Lamb could have had target competition. That didn't happen. Instead, they went offensive lineman because they had gaping holes in the offensive line, which if you look at DraftKings right now, the Eagles are plus 130 to be able to win that division. And I think that is a much better bet right now than the Cowboys at plus 140 to win that division. Yes. I think the Cowboys are going to have a much rougher season than people expect. That offensive line has a lot of holes that they're trying to figure out. They're trying to maximize it. Dak is a giant question mark. If Dak doesn't produce this year, do you think the Cowboys will move on from Dak?
I feel like we say this every year, but no. Like, they have a top – whatever you feel about Dak, you have to say he's top 15. Like, if you have a top half of the league quarterback that still has miles in the tank, is still excited and ready to play for you, fits in what Dallas' system has been doing, there's no way they can move on from him without looking like supreme goofballs in a couple of years.
All right.
But got a great question in the chat. Bernie. Superflex, Dynasty, let's say it's 0.5 tight end premium if that Russell's or Jimmy's. What do you think that CeeDee's trade value is in pure picks?
Oh, man. I mean, he's basically what you're hoping for with any pick that you make in the first round. Like if Marvin Harrison turns into CeeDee Lamb and does what CeeDee Lamb and, in 3 years is doing what CeeDee Lamb did last year, that's what you're hoping for. So, and like he's very young still. He hasn't even gotten his first big contract, I don't think. So you can safely say he's got at least 5 years left, as a peak receiver. I would want this. So someone just said they gave up 3 firsts for him in a 12-team Superflex. I mean, yeah, that would be hard to turn down if I had him, but like I don't know. Like at the same time, I don't even know if I would be looking to move him no matter what. I think 3 firsts is, I guess, where that conversation would start. But unless I'm in a full rebuild and I just want to get picks just to get them, then maybe I do it. But I mean, he's on a short list of like borderline untradeable guys to me.
All right,
My
so
team
let
would
me
have
give
to
you
be-
let me give
Oh,
you
you
an
go.
offer here. Yeah. We'll give you an
Okay.
offer. 3 first-round picks. That's what we're
Okay.
working with. But we're talking 107, 110, 111.
I love picks, but and this is a great receiver class. I just don't think that that's a smart move. I just think the odds of any of those guys becoming CD Lamb, especially in a PPR league, like he's tied to a good quarterback. Like the offense runs through him. He was getting like 12, 15 catches a game toward the end of the season last year. Like it doesn't get better than that.
Yep, they would need to be 3 firsts, one of them from a team that I know is not a playoff team, and all in the same year so that I can kind of reap the rewards all at once. And my team has to be absolute booty cheeks. Like I just would not want to trade him at all.
Yeah, it's like that orphan that you take over, that just has that like 2 players. Like it's got that Burrow and it's got that Lamb, and you're like, man, what do I do with this? Like these guys are just gonna rot on my roster. Like let me just try and trade them away, see what I can do, see what I can move on. Yeah, so for me, if I'm moving off of CD, I'm most likely looking in that 103, 104 range to be able to be the prime centerpiece of the deal. I'm looking to try and get a Neighbors to be able to replace him. And then ideally, I would want 107. And then at that point, look, it's 2 firsts, but it's a incredibly premium first in a 103, 104 to be able to get Neighbors. And then assigning a name to it, if I can get in a Dunze at a 107. So let's just call it 104, 107 at that point. If you told me that I needed to take a second, if I needed a 201, 202 to be able to get a Jonathan Brooks or one of the other wide receivers that ends up kind of sliding a little bit, maybe another Bo Nix if I need a quarterback for production right now, maybe Ladd if he slips. So, yeah, I mean, if I need to split him on a complete rebuild, tear down type of situation, I'd 100% be willing to do that if I can get a premium asset that I know is going to be liquid.
Word.
Okay, cool. Well, we touched on my guy. So, Bernie, who's your second wide receiver?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn here. I have a few that I might choose from, but I think I'll go with I'm gonna go with Garrett Wilson. They just similar to what you were just saying about CD. He's already, his stock is already pretty damn high. I guess he doesn't quite have the shine that CD does just because he didn't have the opportunity to have that wide receiver 1 year after Rodgers got hurt. But to me, he's in a very similar situation where he's the clear go-to guy tied to a good quarterback. And I just like what the Jets did this offseason in the draft a lot more than what they did last year. Getting the 2 tackles, Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith in the offseason, drafting Olufashanu, right?
Yep.
I got like Troy Fontenot, Olufashanu, all those offensive line names are getting mixed up in my head, but they go and get him as a swing tackle, which keeps the floor of the offensive line high. I'm not worried about Mike Williams stealing targets. Like he's a good outside receiver. He is what he is. He can catch jump balls and stuff like that. It's a nice piece. He's better than Alan Lazard, but Garrett Wilson, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if he led the NFL in targets. Honestly, like he's going to be a massive piece to that offense, and I just think that him escaping without, like, they were also talking about maybe getting Brock Bowers at 10, or if one of the receivers was there, maybe they'd take him and then make it a little more of a split target situation. They did take Malachi Corley late. To me, he's a gadget player. He's a slot guy. Like he's also not stealing stuff from Garrett Wilson. So yeah, the Garrett Wilson's my answer in terms of, I just think they did a good job building the rest of the team around him. And if Rodgers can stay healthy, then I think his ceiling is pretty unlimited.
Yeah, so I was really excited when they took Olu. I was really excited with that pick. I was really glad that they did right by Rodgers. They did right by Olu. They got a bunch of glass panels out at tackle in Moses and Smith. So yeah, getting an additional tackle that is incredibly young, is very good in pass protection, is a improving run blocker, still a very good run blocker, but improving run blocker for that offense, I think just will unlock Rodgers' longevity. It'll be able to keep him on that ayahuasca train, being able to stay healthy and being able to put all those illnesses away, all those nicks and knacks during the season, going to be able to play a full season. And if he does, Garrett Wilson, we're finally going to have the Garrett Wilson that doesn't have to get a bunch of crap targets and just say, oh, he was a high volume guy that just got awful targets, therefore he didn't produce because of that. So I think this is going to be a double-edged sword for Garrett Wilson. If he doesn't produce this year with a healthy Rodgers, I think he's going to ultimately slide back and he's going to be stuck in that high-end wide receiver 2 range for a long part of his career. Mike, any thoughts?
Completely agree with the Wilson call out as a winner. Malachi Corley doesn't get me excited. Like, he's a design touch guy at best. And being able to bolster the O-line, like we already talked about, makes a ton of sense from a team building perspective, makes a ton of sense for Garrett. I'm excited for the Jets this year. AFC East is going to be a dogfight.
They also upgraded their quarterback 2 position. So if Rodgers does get hurt, Joe Flacco's back. He comes in. He was pretty exciting last year. He at least got the fantasy guys their points when he was playing for Cleveland. So it could always be worse.
Completely agree. I mean,
wait. Flacco's with the Jets?
Yeah, I just had to Google it. But I do remember them bringing him back because Zach Wilson's gone, so they needed a backup.
Flacco loves to throw it to only 2 people, so he's only going to throw it to Malachi Corley and Jeremy Ruckert.
Colts. He's with the Colts.
Oh, Flacco's on the Colts. Oh,
yes. That's why I was like, I know that this.
My bad.
I think it's Tyrod Taylor's the 2 in New York.
But regardless, it doesn't matter. Okay. They got rid of Zach Wilson, which is a positive for any locker
room. They upgraded quarterback 2 by getting rid of Zach Wilson. That's what I meant to say.
Exactly. The mothers in New York rejoice. He is no longer there. They don't have to put up with his antics. But talking about antics and talking about people that we love, Mother's Day is coming up here. Let's go to the running back position because nobody loves running backs right now. So, Mike, you want to lead us off?
I would love to. Running backs are gross, and I hate them. The more that I play Dynasty, the more that I hate them. But Ramondre Stevenson, they didn't add a soul that's worth talking about. And Zeke is now in Dallas. That shows that they are committed to him for at least 2024. And when we talk about a running back in that caliber of range, 1 year of clear, this guy's going to be the guy on a team, good enough for me. So give me Ramondre. I'm excited about, he's going to be your RB2. You can go buy him for pretty cheap in most formats right now. Draft him late and redraft. Plug him into your DFS lineups. Like, Ramondre is going to be fine in a weird. So this is my uncle. Whoever wins gets to add a rule every year. So Uncle Steve's looking at the rules he's going to add. He's going to add an extra running back, and he's going to go ahead and take Ramondre.
Hell yeah, Steve.
Yeah. But, no, I just think it's a great fit, and the team is committed to him long term. So what's not to like?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going into his final year of his contract. I mean, that's the one thing not to like. They added Antonio Gibson, who is a better pass-catching back, and Ramondre Stevenson over the last 2 years has gotten a lot of his PPR points as a pass-catching back. They have a rookie quarterback who, if I remember correctly, Drake May wasn't a huge fan of checking it down to running backs in college. So you have all of that kind of working against you. You have a brand new coaching staff that we know nothing about how they're going to do things. So
It would be
Yeah.
hilarious if Antonio Gibson was the running back. Like, he was the running back 18 this year.
Right. Yeah. That would just be something that you're like, oh, yep, that fits the Patriots.
Yep. No, I think it's Ramondre, but yes, the Gibson call out is fair. But Drake May doesn't like to check it down. In the same token, Drake May isn't exact like who is catching passes in New England. I love Javon Baker. I think he's really exciting. I like Jalen Polk. I think he'll be okay. But Ramondre is probably the best offensive player they have as far as skill position players right now.
No love for Pop Douglas? Come on.
Ah,
With a name like that?
I
He
love
has
me
to be
some
good.
Pop Douglas, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, Mike, about the most established for sure. At least it's got to be Ramondre, and I mean, Gibson has had plenty of opportunity and never really done much with it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Evan, too, about like the rookie quarterback, new coaches, and everything, but it's kind of like what we were saying with the Steelers. Like, if you think about what they had last year, like it's hard to get worse than the last 2 years, I guess. With they had the defensive coordinator calling plays 2 years ago, and then last year was a total disaster. I kind of am looking at the Patriots like this year's Texans, maybe, where they come in and new culture, new quarterback. I'm super high on Drake May. Um, I mean, come on, you need to sell it more? Former middle linebacker, now head coach, brings in a whole new system. I mean, I can talk myself into the Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator coming over from the Browns. That's a good scheme that he runs there. Um, I personally think both Polk and Baker both fit Drake May's skill set really well in terms of ball winners on the outside. Um, I'm not sure about the checkdowns. I also think that UNC offense was a bit of a mess, and so we can't really speak to what Drake does. I think he's got excellent like field vision and feel for where players are. So I wouldn't be surprised if he could do some dump offs. And I just think that that's going to be a better team, a better offense. Um, and so I could see their running back one being a solid piece and definitely outperforming where he's ranked right now.
You heard it here first. The Patriots are this year's Texans.
I'm stamping
And
that.
you should draft them accordingly. We're going to clip it just so that's all you said.
Hey, we'll have a bold takes at some point. We can bring you back on, Bernie, for some bold takes around here. So always love that. But while we're talking, Bernie, why don't you give us your running back that you want to tout?
Yeah, I'll say the combo of the Bengals running back combo of Zach Moss and Chase Brown. They obviously parlays with Joe Mixon in the offseason. And then in a pretty deep running back class, didn't add anybody to compete with either Zach Moss or Chase Brown. I think they both have really defined roles, and I think it could be a situation where they both are able to give you decent production, at least as flex plays. And then depending how with the throughout the course of the year, RB can just become such a mess that they might be, startable RB2s at least. And if one of them goes down, they can kind of like swallow up the other's workload. I'm more of a Chase Brown guy myself, just because of the juice that he provides and the pass game upside. But Zach Moss too, if you're buying in on that Bengals offense being a super high scoring offense, and he's going to be their goal line back, like Joe Mixon always had so many opportunities, especially at the goal line. Those are going to go to Zach Moss now, so he could easily have like a high touchdown rate, kind of an ugly middle RB2, but crush his value in terms of where he's ranked.
Yeah, absolutely love it. They got rid of Mixon, moved on from him. I think that offense still is elite from a pass catching standpoint, from a passing standpoint. So that's going to be able to keep the safeties back, going to keep the safeties out of crashing the box, which is really important for an effective run game. You have an offensive line that is improving, that is working together well. You have to find a new offensive coordinator. You just have to see how that offense kind of runs with all of that. Which is always important. Burrow comes back. So I think there's a lot of things that are definitely progressing in the right direction for Brown, for Moss. So love the call out.
Yeah. No feedback. Evan.
Okay, cool. So moving on, I'm going to go with Aaron Jones here.
Fair.
The Vikings, what did they do? They drafted a rookie quarterback. What is a rookie quarterback, especially JJ McCarthy's best friend?
Yep.
A solid offensive line, a good running back. And what has Aaron Jones always been? He's been an efficiency back throughout his career. If you're taking Aaron Jones at this point in his career, you should very well expect that he's going to miss time throughout the season. So be full aware that that is going to be the case. But are we really saying that he's going to get strong competition from Ty Chandler?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Mike, you are? All right. Well, then
Elite.
let me go find you some Ty Chandler shares, and I will be happy to take a third for those Ty
Deal.
Chandler shares.
Send it in every league we're in.
But yeah, Aaron Jones has been an efficiency monster. If he does what he did in his time in Green Bay, also the fact that there is the narrative that he's going to feel a little slighted against Green Bay. He's going to feel slighted by the team of moving on from him, moving on for Josh Jacobs. So now all of a sudden you have that narrative. He stayed in division, which I think shows how much he wants to prove that Green Bay made a mistake as well. He's playing inside a dome, which should allow him to play a little bit faster, keep him out of the elements that he used to play in Green Bay in. We'll see how that goes. He has elite weapons on the outside. And then Hawkinson, hopefully coming back in the second half of the season, closer to 100%, probably coming back a little bit sooner, but probably won't be 100% right off the rip. You have a good offensive line. All of that just plays into AJ or Aaron Jones being the guy that you can rely on. And he is going to be a heavy redraft target for me, and he's going to be a heavy win now contender target.
Thanks for letting me know, because we play most of our leagues together, so I will just go ahead and draft him around early. No, I love the Aaron Jones call out. He was also on my list. I actually also had the Bengals running backs on my list, so we'll just be a little vacuum of excitement here. Like, who is the running back one? Like, yes, I love Ty Chandler. I think he has more juice than people give him credit for. But Aaron Jones is going to continue to be effective. He's going to be an efficiency monster. We're going to see a guy that gets, 5-6 yards a carry and then 7-8 yards per catch. And he can run routes. He probably hurts Addison more than anything else. So I'm excited for Aaron Jones in Minnesota. Bernie, anything about Aaron Jones?
No, I think you guys touched on it. I would just say great scheme fit too. I mean, he had the benefit of scheme and coaching in Green Bay as well, but I don't think he loses that going to Minnesota. So yeah, I agree with all that.
Okay, well, fantastic. Yep, coming up on time here. Let's all just roundtable real quick. One player each, no analysis, just give me the player.
Zamir White.
Nice. I'll say Kyle Pitts.
Ooh, okay. I'll go Puka Nacua.
And also, pour some out for Michael Mayer, RIP to a homie.
Yeah.
Ah, man. Yeah, right in the pooper.
Yeah. Bernie, before we close out, you want to tell people what you're working on, where they can find you, stuff like that?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at C Sports Bros, or you can type in Bernie into the search bar. Not putting out a ton of stuff right now. I might write some stuff for Fantasy Football Astronauts. We're kind of working heavily on the Film Lab stuff to get that out there. Definitely stay tuned for that project. That's going to be super sick. So we're putting that out this summer. But yeah, just follow me on Twitter for more hot takes like the Patriots are next year's Texans.
There you go. We are always sponsored by W. Use code FFRPG at checkout. We're also sponsored by Trophy Smack. Use code FFRPG at checkout. We're also sponsored by a couple of other places. Just type in FFRPG, see if it works. Live your life. Evan, you want to say anything before we leave?
No. Go Titans.
Go Titans.